Let's talk about de-rigging the Feva. So when you think about it, there's really 4 things you have to do to de-rig the boat at the end of the day when you get to the dock. In order, I recommend de-rigging the main, the jib, the spinnaker, and then the rudder. The reason why you do the main first is out of a matter of practicality more than anything. Generally speaking, when you get to the dock, when it's blowing anything more than 3 knots, the main is going to either be powering up over and over, moving your boat around, or worse yet, it's going to be flapping and flogging and tearing the sail apart a little bit. On that note, take a look at the main for a second. Most of the main is composed of what's called a mylar sandwich. It's 2 layers of that clear plastic adhered over a matrix of this black material. But when you go to the clue plate over here, there's several more layers of material. And there's a very abrupt transition between the 2, which means that when you unhook, which is the first thing you should do anyway, once that sail starts flapping, it's going to flap back and forth, almost like a door hinge, opening and closing. So on that note, this is definitely a partner activity, which is why I brought Scott Hardy in to help us with this. Scott over here, owner-operator of the boat locker where we're located. Some of us like to call him the Feva King, as made appropriate by his Dealer of the Year vest from RS, which is well earned, is going to help me demonstrate the proper technique for taking the main down. So one partner will hold the clue, as I've shown you. The other partner will go over here. Let me take a look closer at this part, and unhook the main halyard. So you'll notice if your main halyard's rigged properly, there's 2 clips here. You're going to pull on the shock cord, turn the clips perpendicular and unhook. And then if you look up at the very top of the mast, you got to get it out of that cleat. So we can look all the way up there. And once I whip it out of the cleat, like so, it's ready to come down. We also got to take the Cunningham out, which I'll do quickly. Alrighty, now, as it comes down, thank you, Scott. Partner in the front will start to pull it out of the mast track. Partner in the back has to pull back. Notice how Scott's pulling back to keep the foot flat. Let's come a little closer for a second, Scott. If you see this, you see the foot start to fold, you're going to crinkle the mylar and rip up the sail a little bit. As it comes down, you roll it like so. Every single time the sail comes down, you should have your kids do this. Gets caught, look up, I'm back in the cleat. So it's true teamwork here to make sure the sail stays nice. Oops, excuse me, you'll notice that it gets caught in the shroud sometimes. You gotta make sure you pull it from behind the shroud and whip it out. Once it's all the way down, you just put it down in the boat. Thank you, Scott. And we'll move on to the next part. So what I'm going to do now is unhook the main halyard. So I'm just going to expand the loop that the bobble or stopper knot goes through, pull it out. One thing you'll notice is sometimes when there's been a lot of load on this thing over the course of the day, this loop will go through like so. Kids will often get confused by this. All you have to do is use your thumb, push the loop back through, and then everything starts to come undone nicely again. Once we have the 2 parts of the main halyard detached, I like to tie them together, just with a loose little knot for now, to make sure they don't sky. As long as your main halyard doesn't start whipping around the shroud or other things, you can just let it hang out. What I'll sometimes do is just kind of put it in the Cunningham cleat like so, and that'll let it chill for now. So now main first, let's talk about the jib. So as far as bringing the jib down, here's the way I like to do it. I will tighten the jib up using the sheets on one side and cleat it. Whoops, excuse me. And we're gonna have to go around the boat to show you the next part. So come on back around. Now we're gonna undo the halyard, which is pretty straightforward. Pull it out of there, undo the cleat knot, undo the tension carefully. You don't want to get your finger caught in there. Pull this all the way out of the friction ring or loop, because if you leave it in there, kids will often get confused. And now let me just note, I tightened the jib on the other side. You should probably tighten it on the port side while you're doing this. It's going to work a little better. So we'll do that. It's okay. Everyone makes mistakes. I'm no different. And now I'm going to make sure the halyard's running free. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to grab both sides of the jib. Whoops. And hopefully pull it down so that it's not folding or clogging. A little bit of like this kind of gentle folding, as long as it's not a tight corner, is okay. Now notice I have the halyard set a little too high. It's actually just right for me. But if this happens, if you're trying to be a really, really meticulous sailor and keep your sail off the ground, you can just kind of do like a little flake like this. Either way, now we just gotta take the halyard off. Same thing as the main halyard. Tie them together for now. Just for now. Lead it off, nice and loose. Now I'm gonna take the head of the jib, I'm gonna pull it out like so. And now I can very easily roll it down towards the foot of the jib. Now you can probably see right away why I try to tighten both parts of the jib before doing this. It just makes it really nice and easy and pretty much makes it impossible to form a crease in the middle of the sail. Once I have that all rolled up, if you're someone who leaves the jibs in the boats overnight, I'm not, but fair enough. You can leave it like that and then it's plug and play in the morning. If you are taking it off the boat, you'll have to then undo your fisherman's bends. Pull the jib sheets out of their leads. Undo this knot in the front. You don't really have to zoom out on this one. I think you guys can figure out how to undo a couple hitches and clove hitch. It's not too bad. Cool. And then, last thing. You can wrap the jib sheets around like so if you want to. If you do it, particularly if you have a newer sail, I recommend doing so very gently, just because if you pull this tight, you'll start to crease the sail up. So I'm gonna leave this as a nice, loose setup. Still keeps the jib together. As long as you've done your rolls neatly, your main and jib will still fit in the bag just fine like that. You don't really need to roll the jib inside the main. And this is a little easier for maintaining the sails while also rigging quickly. All right, so main and jib are done, let's do the kite. Let me point out, by the way, a lot of people leave the kite in the boat overnight. If that's what you gotta do, that's what you gotta do. But I encourage you to take it out every single time you've been sailing, because you'll notice the kite's made of a material that works great, but also gets sun faded quite easily. So what tends to happen on a lot of older boats is because it stays like this overnight, the clew tack and head all get very sun faded and weaker, and those are high load areas. So I recommend taking the spinnaker out every night. Also because water tends to collect in that tube, no matter how good your cover is. All right, so as far as taking it out, let's do it this way. Pull the head out a bit, undo it, same thing as the main and jib. We gotta make sure we don't sky this. So what I usually do is just kind of tie it loosely under the tack bar for now, just like a simple hitch. Make sure it's not going anywhere. Now keep pulling these out until we find where the retrieval line attaches. Undo your bowline. Here's where things start to get tricky. Now, you may be tempted to keep pulling the line, the retrieval line. You don't want to do that. Don't want to actually bring the kite out. What you should do is keep pulling the kite out. Try to keep it on deck, keep it off the ground. And eventually you'll be able to find your bobble. Take the bobble off for now. Put it somewhere you can find it easily. I like right here on the inspection port cap. And you'll take the retrieval line and pull it out of the grommet that it was led through. Now your halyard and retrieval line are completely free of the kite, so we should tie them off right away. We'll just tie them both off to the tack bar for now. Just loose knots, we'll tidy it up later. Just gotta make sure they're not going anywhere. Remember, it's critical that you never, ever, ever let your halyard or retrieval line go in this hole right here, in front of the mast, nor let it go through the bow compartment. All right, so we have the head and retrieval line off. Let's take care of the sheets and the tack line. These are all straightforward. The tack line, you're just untying a bowline. Now, you'll notice on the tack line, I think this is talked about in the rigging portion as well. There's this hitch right here. Never undo that. Never undo that. That's the knot that prevents this line from going inside the pole. So just don't touch it. Tack's undone. Let's talk about the sheets. If you rig the sheets my way, it's really easy. You're just going to undo your fisherman's bend, just like the jib. Now, we'll let it hang out for now. We'll actually pull the sheets out of the block, excuse me. We'll let this hang out for now. You may have to put it underneath the sail to weigh it down if there's a lot of wind. But there is going to be one more step in a second. Anyway, so remember we talked about 4 steps: main, jib, spin, rudder. We're up to number 4. Taking the rudder out. So it's like an opti rudder. It's pretty straightforward. If you come back here, you'll see there's a pintle and a gudgeon. That doesn't do anything to hold it in. It's all of this clip right here. What I do that makes it much easier for me, because these are often hard to get out, is take both thumbs on either side of the clip. All my other fingers underneath the rudder. Push the clip in super hard. Comes right out a little too easy, huh? Let's not crush our mainsail. Put it in the boat. Last thing I want to point out, this is optional, but if you like to keep your spinnaker neat, here's one way I like to do it. I leave the sheets on my kite, by the way. So, I'm going to take the kite off here. What I'll also do, you notice the sheets are getting all over the place. I'll put this in the ground for a second if you don't like that. It's good just to coil up your sheets now. They really get in the way otherwise. So I'll coil them up just for now. Cool. Now let's go to the back of the boat. And we'll make this kite nice and pretty. So remember, when you think about the shape of an asymmetrical kite, the shortest edge is going to be the foot, and the opposite of that's the head. So I'm going to find the head. Luckily it's labeled on the Feva. There's the head. So I'll clip the head onto the rudder pintle, just like you would do with the rudder. So we can see that in the video here. And then follow the kite down like so. And you can see, you can definitely see now why I chose the head for this, because like I said, the foot is the most narrow edge, so it's a lot easier to hold the whole kite this way. So I'm going to shake it out, make it nice and flat, or as flat as you can get. And then put the sheets over here, they're in the way. What I like to do is fold it into triangles, and do this. Put this down for a second. If you have your partner, they can just undo the head, but generally speaking, it's kind of hard to get it off, so you need someone with 2 fingers dedicated to this task. And now, I'll just roll from this corner. Cool. Yeah. Now, as far as making the Feva pretty for the night, I mean, with the unless you have certain covers, you need to leave the boom in the boat. So we'll take the boom off. Again, let's assume for the sake of discussion that these sails are in a sail bag. And what I'll do is kind of do this, make sure the main is legged correctly, no twists. Main sheet, I should say. Pull it all the way so the boom stays in the middle. Tidy up my main sheet. Cool. Back of the boat looks good. Might take a stern plug out later. Now tidying up your halyards. So jib, I would actually just leave like this, like I've already done. Just tighten it a little bit. If you leave it loose and it's a windy night, it'll bang against the mast and start to chafe itself up. So we'll do that. Main halyard, same thing. Just pull it down in this cleat. And now the spin stuff. So the spin stuff is tricky because if you pull on either one of these lines, the pole's gonna start to slide out. So you don't really need to get them super tight. What I usually like to do is bowl in both of them onto here. Because again, we gotta make sure that they stay in an easily accessible place without going inside the boat. And then again, you don't really want these lines like flopping all over the place. So what I'll then do is take the retrieval line and pull the slack out of the halyard without taking the pole out, of course. Get that decently tight. Just shove it in the bow. That's de-rigging the Feva.